Welcome to the World's Mayor Experience. I'm Joshua T. Berglan, also known as the World's Mayor. And in the Bafut Kingdom, they call me Tah-Lah, which means father of the land. Right now, I'm talking to you from Dada Estates in Limbe, Cameroon, a coastal city on the southwest edge of this country where the rainforest runs straight into the Atlantic and the air smells like salt, palm oil, and rain. It's good to be here with you today. Before we get in today's conversation, I want to tell you where I'm actually sitting, because the place matters. The place is part of the message. A few weeks ago, I delivered what I call the Cell Phone Sovereignty Workshop. 5 hours of teaching live from Cameroon. Storytelling, hooks, answer engine optimization, income streams, the full architecture of a media company built entirely from the phone in your pocket. It was advanced on purpose. And what I learned in that room, well, what I learned has taught me more than anything that I taught. I watched where the eyes went wide. I watched where they glazed over. I watched which concepts landed in 10 minutes and which ones needed 100. I came out of that workshop with a much more clear picture of what people in this country actually need, not what I had assumed they needed when I planned the curriculum. That is why, a few weeks later, I went live again with a website building workshop. Smaller scope, one outcome. Build a complete multimedia blog in 90 minutes using free AI tools. The people who could not absorb everything in 5 hours could build something real in 90. And that is what they needed. That is also why the workshops that are coming next look different. They will be task-specific, one concept at a time, less overwhelming for the creator who has never made a video, never published a blog post, never set up a payment account. I will be teaching some of them. Other teachers, local and global, will be teaching the rest. And while I'm here in Limbe, we are putting new in-person workshops on the schedule. So the people who learn better in a room together finally get to learn in a room together. This is the lesson Cameroon keeps teaching me. You do not show up with one big answer. You show up with 100 small ones. And you stay long enough to deliver them at the speed people can actually receive them. Limbe is one of 4 cities, along with Buea, Bamenda, and Yaoundé, that we are turning into the next corridor of the sovereign franchise, anchored north in the Bafut Kingdom alongside Princess Abumbi Prudence of the Royal House, mirrored east in Nakivale Refugee Settlement with Pastor Bob and his organization. Stitched together by a network the world hasn't even seen before, because the world they haven't asked for it. I'm sitting in front of this microphone today because something is shifting here. The Royal Echo Village is the princess's vision, her people, her land, her royal house, her dream. She wanted to build a media hub long before I ever arrived in Cameroon. What she needed was the curriculum, the business plan, the media monetization architecture that turns a creator hub into something self-sustaining instead of something that has to keep asking for money. That is what I brought to the table. She is the architect of the vision. I'm the architect of the model. Pastor Bob is the architect on the Nakivale side. And the creators inside every hub are the architects of their own work. Together, we are building something none of us could have built alone. Before I walk you through that door, I have to say something to the person who is listening to this from a place of waiting. And I know that's a lot of you. It's me too. The person stuck in a cycle that looks like it has no exit. The person who has been doing everything right and watching nothing happen. The person who has been praying the same prayer for so long, they are starting to wonder if anyone is listening on the other end. I want you to hear something before we go anywhere else. There is a plan moving inside your life right now that you cannot see. I know that that is the kind of sentence that sounds easy to say from a microphone. So let me say it from where I have actually been. I have been homeless. I have been arrested and in jail 6 times. I've actually been arrested more. I've overdosed 6 times. I have lived with HIV for over a decade. I've been told by people with credentials that I would never contribute anything that mattered in this world. I've spent long stretches of my life where the silence from heaven felt so loud it was deafening. And I want to tell you what I learned in that silence. The silence is not absence. The silence is construction. When you cannot see God moving, that is often when he is moving the most. He is rearranging the rooms in your future you have not walked into yet. He is closing doors that look like opportunities and opening doors that look like closets. He is sending people to you right now who you have not even met, and some of them are walking a road that will take years to reach you. But they are walking. Think of a master painter. You are standing 2 inches from the canvas. All you can see is the dark stroke, the thick brush, the heavy line. You are convinced the painting is ruined, but the painter is standing on the other side of the room, and what he sees is the finished work. He knows exactly where that dark stroke belongs. You are not looking at a ruined canvas. You are standing too close to a masterpiece. Look at Joseph, pit, slavery, prison. To every human eye that fell on him, his life was a sequence of travesties. To the eye of heaven, every one of those was a transit station on the way to a palace. The pit was not a punishment. It was a route. The prison was not the end. It was a corridor. Your waiting period is not wasted, it's refinement. Gold does not come out of the ground shining. Gold comes out of the ground tangled in rock and mud. The fire is what releases what was already there. The fire is not the enemy of gold. The fire is the friend of gold. And every trial you are walking through right now is doing the same work in you, burning off what does not belong. So the gold that has always been in you can finally come out clean. God is not in a rush to deliver you to your destination. He is in love with who you are becoming on the way there. So if you are listening to this from a place of waiting, whether you're in Bafut, in Bamenda, in Limbe, in Yaoundé, in Nakivale, or anywhere else in this earth, stop trying to force the timing. Stop trying to control the outcome. Stop reading his silence as his absence. The author of eternity is not late. He is never late. Walk by faith, not by sight. Keep moving. Keep building. Keep showing up. The breakthrough is in motion. The blessing is in transit. The best is in front of you, not behind you. And that is exactly why we are having this conversation today. Because the system the world has used to try to help waiting people has failed them. And it has failed the people who paid for it. And both groups are about to be rescued by the same answer. This episode of the World's Mayor Experience is for the person who has been giving and for the person the giving was supposed to reach. Both of you have been failed by the same system. Let's get into it. I want to talk to the person who has been giving. The person who has been writing the $50 check every month for 10 years to a children's fund. The person who has sponsored a village. The person who runs a foundation and signs $250,000 grants and sits in board meetings asking hard questions. The person who tithes faithfully and trusts that the money is doing what it's supposed to do. I want to talk to you today because you have been failed too. Last episode of the World's Mayor Experience, I told you the international aid industry spends $250 billion a year and produces dependency, not sovereignty, definitely not freedom. I told you the system is designed that way. It's not an accident of execution. It is the architecture itself. But I didn't finish the sentence because the architecture just didn't fail the people it was supposed to help. It failed the people who paid for it. It failed you. If the charity model has produced dependency for the receivers, what does it produce for the givers? Let me try to answer this question honestly. It produced cynicism. It produced burnout. It produced a generation of donors who watched 30 years of ending world hunger by 2030 become ending world hunger by 2050, become still working on it. It produced a generation of investors who quietly wrote off impact giving as a tax line because they stopped believing the impact was real. It produced fatigue. And here's the thing I want you to hear. Your fatigue is not ungrateful. Your fatigue is not selfish. Your fatigue is diagnostic. It is your conscience telling you something is wrong with the instrument. Now, let me show you what's actually happening with your dollar. When you give $100 to a major international aid organization, depending on the org, somewhere between 20 and 40 cents of that $100 actually touches the community you intended to help. The rest goes to overhead, marketing, fundraising cost, gala dinners, awareness campaigns, fellowship gatherings of the like-minded organizations, conferences in Geneva and New York and Nairobi, insane staff salaries, hotels with security, drivers, vehicles, fuel, satellite phones, and the institutional cost of being an institution. That's the optimistic version. That's the version where everyone is honest. And in the corruption that can happen between the headquarters and the village, and the actual delivered value is often closer to 10 cents on the dollar, sometimes less. But here's what's uncomfortable. Even that 10 cents is a symptom, not the disease. The real disease is this. The charity model needs the recipient to remain a recipient. If a village in Cameroon or the refugee in Uganda becomes economically sovereign, actually able to feed and house and educate themselves through their own production, well, then the fundraising case for the next year dries up. The org has to find a new project. The grant cycle has to find a new emergency. So even when the system works, it works towards dependency, because dependency is what funds the next round. I'm not saying that every NGO worker is cynical. Most of them aren't. I've met some of the most beautiful, sacrificial human beings I've ever known inside the aid sector. They are heroes. They are also working inside an architecture that punishes the very outcome they say they want. You felt this. That's why you started asking different questions. That's why you started looking for impact investing and social entrepreneurship and B Corps. That's why you got tired of the brochure with the sad child on the cover. You weren't broken. You were responding to the truth. I want to take you somewhere now. I want to take you to a place the Norwegian Refugee Council ranked in 2024 and 2025 as the #1 most neglected displacement crisis on Earth. Not the top 10, not the top 5, #1. Worst, most ignored. That place is the English-speaking regions of Cameroon, the Anglophone crisis, the Northwest and the Southwest, where I'm sitting right now recording this from Dada Estates in Limbe. And here is what is supposed to happen in a place that has been ranked worst. You ready for this? According to the charity model, the people here are supposed to wait. Wait for someone to remember them. Wait for the cameras. Wait for the funding cycle. Wait for the convoy. Wait their turn behind every other crisis the world considers more urgent. Yeesh. But that is not what is happening here. Let me tell you what is actually happening here. a princess named Abumbi Prudence, daughter of the Bafut royal house of the Fawn, King Abumbi II, looked at the math and said, we are not going to wait. We are going to build a media network from the inside of a war that the world has already forgotten. We are going to turn our youth into creators. We are going to monetize our own culture, our own innovations, our own stories, and we are going to do it in a way that the cameras leaving doesn't break. In a refugee settlement in Uganda called Nakivale, one of the largest on the planet, a pastor named Ahadi Bobo, an amazing man, who everyone calls Pastor Bob, decided that the people inside the camp aren't refugees first. They're creators first. They're entrepreneurs first. They have stories the world has never heard and skills the world will pay for. If you put the rails in place to let them be paid, these are the people the charity model would have surveyed, reported on, photographed, and moved past. They are doing the opposite of waiting. They are building. And here is what your dollar can do if you re-aim it. For $32,591, one time, we can deploy a complete sovereign hub in a community like Bafut, like Nakivale, like Bamenda, like Limbe, like Yaoundé. That 32,000 is broken into three pillars: physical sanctuary, digital engine, human capital, built by local artisans with local materials, powered by solar and satellite internet, operated by the community itself. And once it's running, here's what changes. The creators in that hub keep 80 to 90% of every dollar they generate. Not me, them. The hub takes 10 to 20% to keep the lights on and the satellite internet paid. That's it. That means your $32,000 is not a one-year project. It is a permanent piece of economic infrastructure that produces income for decades. And the income belongs to those people, not to me, not to the network, to the creator. That is what your dollar was supposed to do. It was supposed to make itself unnecessary. The ultimate test of a good investment in a community is whether they need you ever again. The charity model rewards perpetual need. Sovereign infrastructure rewards graduation. Your heart was right the whole time. The instrument was wrong. And now, I want to speak to you from the other side of this, to the creator, to the young person watching this in Bafut, in Bamenda, in Limbe, in Nakivale, in Yaoundé, to the Kotek student who told me last month she wants to be a doctor, to the woman in Limbe who showed up to the cell phone sovereignty workshop with a cracked screen and a story that should already be in print, to the artist in Bamenda whose work has been seen by his neighbors and no one else, to the refugee inside Nakivale whose grandmother taught her a recipe that the luxury food world would pay thousands of dollars to learn. You are not a project. You are not a case study. You are not a line in somebody's grant report. You are not a number in a UN survey. You are a sovereign creator. And the system I am describing is built so that the world finally pays you directly for what you have always carried: your knowledge, your craft, your story, your culture, your heritage, your survival, your dignity. Those things have always had value. The old system just made sure none of it landed in your pocket. That ends starting in Bafut, starting in Nakivale, starting in the corridor we are building right now across this country. So here's what I want to leave you with on both sides of this mic. To the donor, you were not naive. You were not foolish. You were operating with the only instrument you had. Now you have a better one. A dollar that builds permanent infrastructure, a dollar that transfers agency, a dollar that lands in the creator's wallet, not in an overhead line. To the creator, You were not waiting because you wanted to. You were waiting because the rails did not reach you. Now they do. Both of you have been failed by the same system, and both of you are about to be rescued by the same answer. The cameras are not coming. The funding is not coming. So we are building something that doesn't need either of them. If you want to be a part of it, there are 3 doors. Book a sovereign architecture consultation with me. Every dollar of the consulting revenue deploys directly into the active hubs in Bafut and Nakivale. Fund a hub at $32,591, or fund single equipment tier starting at $50. Cameras, satellite internet terminals, solar gear, school fees, every dollar is tracked. And if neither of those is possible for you right now, share this episode. Send it to one person you know who has been waiting for a different answer. That costs nothing, and it might be the most important thing you do today. The links will be in the show notes. They lead to joshuatberglan.com or theworldsmayor.com. Surrendered power builds what force never could. We are not here to save the world. We are here to hand the world a microphone and let it save itself. From Dada Estates in Limbe, Cameroon, this is Joshua Tah-Lah Berglan, the world's mayor, and I'll see you next dispatch.